Hey guys, welcome to the third and final part of this week's anamorphic projection tutorials. And in this tutorial, we're actually going to finally get to the exciting part, which is creating the anamorphic projection as a physical object in your space. And from there, that will set you up for next week being able to use that information to physically recreate your anamorphic inside of your rooms. Okay, so just to recap, up in this point, you have to have done two things. One is you have to have created a viewpoint and saved it, and so remember that is you'll select a viewing position and a viewing direction, right? And in this case, we're viewing a bit from this point of view down towards here, right? And you have saved that as a view so that you can always reference it by going to set view and selecting that view. And then the other part that you have to have done is you have to have at this point placed your drawing along that viewing vector, right? And in order to do that, we had to place that drawing perpendicular to a vector line, and then locate that vector to our viewing vector. Okay, so once you're here, now at this point, you are ready to create your anamorphic projection in digital space. And at this point, there's two things. One is it's important you ungroup this from the other parts if it was grouped to your vector line and your 3D sort of sphere, right? And the other part is that you grab the portions of your space that you're going to project onto. So in this case, it's the floor and it's the walls and it's all these extra walls, and that you select all of those and you group those as well. Okay. So so you'll have your view vect drawing as one group and your space as another group. Okay. And now we're ready to create our anamorphic projection. And if you remember, right, an anamorphic projection takes into account the fact that when we look at this, right, if we want to project it onto space, we are doing a conical projection of that, right? So based off of this particular view. And that's right. That's because, as we've learned from last week, perspectives are conical projections, which is the way that our eyes see the world, right? And we can reproduce that. Right? So the first step there to do this is to take our line work from our drawing and extrude it as a cone back towards our eye in order to create this line work, but now as physical surfaces. In order to do that, you're going to grab your line work and you're going to type extrude curve to point. And we're going to bring all of those back to our position, our eye point here. And so as you can see, that now creates all of these surfaces that that project conically from our line work back to our eye point. Okay, and if you go actually and you go to your view, if you look at all those surfaces from our view, you'll see we don't actually see the surfaces. All we see is the image, and that's because all those surfaces, as I showed you in that in the lecture, all those surfaces are placed along that line in our conical projection. Okay, so that is the first step. Now we've made the thing that was a drawing, we've made it physical. Okay, at this point, you're gonna want to group all of those objects so that you can grab them easily. And the way that you do that is you're gonna select from the top left to the bottom right, and that's gonna grab a whole bunch of things. So I want to ungrab any additional items that you click here, and we're gonna want to also ungrab all the curves. So in this case, you can see that I removed the curves from that selection. And now you're going to want to group those surfaces. So you're going to, at this point, you have your line work as one group, you're going to have your surface as another group, and you have your space as a third group. And now what we have to do is now that we have made these things physical in space, we're going to scale them so that they intersect with our room. And the scale has to be done along the viewing vector line. So we're going to select all those surfaces, type scale, and we're going to choose our starting point at our eye point, and we're going to choose any point along this viewing vector, okay, as our second point. And now we're going to sort of scale. And as you can see, the scaling as it happens, it does not change proportion or direction, okay? And that's very, very important, because so long as we maintain the proportion and the direction, all of this, right, if we look at it from that view, it's still going to look just like the drawing. So if we go again, we go here, we're still only seeing that drawing, although now it's a much, much larger set of objects. Okay, and now that we have sort of made these surfaces so large that they intersect our space, now we can see where those intersections are. So, and in order to do that, it's very easy. You're just going to grab all of those surfaces, and you're going to grab all of the surfaces of your room, and you're going to type intersect. Now, this process is going to take a while, and that's because obviously the computer is computing a whole lot of intersections. It's drawing lines anywhere that two surfaces hit each other, and it's drawing points anywhere where two lines hit each other. So this part of the process, you just have to wait for a little bit while the computer does its work. Okay, once it's finished, you'll see that you have a whole bunch of line work extra, and you can see that there's some areas, right, where it has nothing to do with your object, but it's just the intersection of additional surfaces. So it recreates some of that. And you see some extra information here. Don't worry about that, okay? At this point, all you have to do is unselect. And now we're just gonna select all, but in this case, from the bottom right to the top left, so that we can just sort of touch all of our extruded surfaces, and it will select them plus all of their line work, and we can hide those, right? We don't ever really need to select like save point, so I'm going to actually just type select PT, and you'll see it grabs all the points, and I'm actually just going to delete those. I don't actually need them. Okay, and now you can see right here, we can see all of the line work as it is projected onto our space in our anamorphic projection. So if I now go ahead and grab our two-dimensional vector line drawing that we had placed here, and I also hide that, if I go to my view and I select that view, you'll see there it is. There is your anamorphic projection. Of course, right, as soon as we change our viewpoint, we begin to see that it's actually a physical thing in the space that is distorted and does all sorts of strange and in many cases beautiful things. Okay, and so at that point we have finished. We have finished with the digital portion, and we have created our digital anamorphic projection. And now we are ready to grab this information and start building it in our physical spaces. Okay, so hopefully these 3 tutorials help you get to this point. If you have any questions or you're having any issues, please let me know.